The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Hey everyone! Get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is the Angry Chicken.
Greetings and welcome back, everybody. This is a freshly cracked episode of The Angry Chicken. Have we done a stupid pun like that in a while? I don't think we have, so we'll roll with that. I'm Garrett Weinzerl, and I'm sitting here as I always am and always should be with Willie Dills Gregory and Jocelyn Moffat. Welcome back, Dills.
What's up? Good to be back. Great job last week with Raven while I was out of town. I enjoyed the episode. I got to actually listen to an Angry Chicken episode for the first time in a while. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Even though there was a lot of Druid talk, it was what I was ready for. My body was ready for the Druid talk, and you guys did not disappoint.
I mean, it's this game or this show. I like to think that if you went back through it and listened, that it would be a relatively good Hearthstone history. So I don't know. I expected there to be a lot of Druid talk, and there was a lot of Druid talk because there's a lot of Druid going on.
It was the correct thing to be doing. Yeah, I know. Like at this point, there might be a little fatigue, but. You know, when you have to cover what's going on in Hearthstone and what's going on is Druid, it's just gonna keep happening until something changes, I guess.
Yeah, but
there's an email about Druid this week too, but it's a little bit different. So
I think I know the email you're talking about, and it was a thought I had as well that I don't know if you guys talked about. I didn't listen to the whole episode. I don't know if you got to that point as well, so I'm excited to talk about Nathan's email. Right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, well, for those of you who are burnt out on Druid, don't worry. We're doing another Druid deck this week. No, I'm messing with you. We're not talking a Paladin deck this week. But yeah, it seems to be all the talk. It's been Druid talk on Reddit every single day. Got up this morning, loaded up Reddit. Still Druid talk going on. So that's going to be happening. We'll do our best to stay away from it as much as possible today. But you know.
Well, I had a nice respite from it because I played against the Lich King for the last 2 days straight.
Oh, nice.
And he plays 0 Druid cards. That was cool.
He is also the subject of another email, so maybe don't dive into that too much. But I did the same thing. I played. I was trying to get Arthas and got burnt out.
It took me 2 days and about 5 total hours. Because I hadn't done any of the adventure period, right? So when I started on Sunday, Sunday I started it, and I had to do the whole adventure up till the Lich King. So that took, and I wasn't net decking or anything. I was just kind of figuring it as I went along. So that took longer than it probably should have. And then when I got to the Lich King, I was like, I won't net deck. I'll just figure it out. And then I kind of broke down because some of the stuff was just really difficult to put the puzzle together. So I would kind of look and see what ideas people were doing, and then try to figure out how to make that work myself.
Most of the time, though, it's not even really a puzzle. It's just like there's one solution that's really easy.
Yeah, you cheat the rule if you can, right? And so if you could cheat the rule, oftentimes then it's about building like an aggro deck around that.
Exactly.
Or something like that. Yeah.
You just have to be like super, super aggressive, and that was the kind of easy solution. And I got pretty burnt out on the restart button. So I was just like,
I will say this though, the mage thing, because everyone talked about the whole Cabal Lackey counterspell thing, and I did that for a while. And I think Josh, you were even in my channel when I was playing that one. And yeah, you just sit there hoping to get exactly that start, and then you still aren't guaranteed to win.
Yeah.
So then I switched to, instead of doing that, just heal myself, right? So I played Mistress of Mixtures. So I go to 1, and then I go to 5, and then I play, So that actually worked on like the first or second try. So there was some times where I think, yeah, this can work, but you don't need to do it. The cool thing is that there's multiple ways to tackle the same problem, and I think, though, a lot of people get kind of tunnel visioned on that initial rule, right? So, like with the Hunter one, it's like, oh, don't play minions, right? So then you don't take a bunch of damage. But then I saw, some people play it where you just play a bunch of minions, but then you also play Molten Giants, right? So you just immediately have Molten Giants on the board. So there's lots of ways to do it. I found it really interesting, frustrating, but very, overall satisfying to have completed it. And obviously the Arthas hero is super sweet.
Oh, yeah. I do want that thing, but I just got burnt out on. I think I got to the Hunter Challenge, and then I tried it a whole bunch of different ways because I was I beat 4 other classes using cheesy aggro Murloc strategies, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try not to do that, and I'm gonna take 10-ish minions. I'll take 20 damage, but that'll be fine. And there was just no other strategy that I could really make work. So then I was like, I guess I'll just go back to Murlocs. And then I won, and then I was like, and so I stopped.
I can see that. There was though cool ways to do it. With the Hunter one, I just did a deck with Barnes and Yashiraj, right, and that was a cool way to win that one. And I'm putting out a bunch of videos on my channel of each of my actual victories with the deck I specifically used. And for sure, there were some where, I just aggro Murlocked him down. But I think that was I maybe only did that for 2 of the entire thing, 2 out of the 9 classes. I did actual.
Do you have a little counter in the corner that says this was after 87 mulligan attempts?
No. I mean, so definitely the mage one, it was just that I made the mistake of trying to do the stupid Cabal Lackey thing for so long. I should have just gone right with the, just to heal myself back up and just kill him normally strategy, which worked perfectly. But, then there was things like the Warrior one, which was really fun, where you try to set up a fatigue situation with Kel'Thuzad. There was the Paladin one, I was trying to do this glitch thing that apparently had been patched forever.
Yeah, I saw you try to do that, and then you finally set it up and it didn't glitch.
And it didn't work. I know, I set it up perfectly, and I was like, I guess this has been patched. So, yeah, that was a bunch of wasted time.
So that was, an hour and a half of wasted time.
Yeah. But, I mean, overall, you'll see if you check out my YouTube videos that are coming, I'm putting them, it's just I got to export 9 videos. So I'm about halfway through, so it should be up this week sometime. But if you see, I talk a little bit about it at the beginning, and just kind of, it's super fun, but I could see why some players, this is going to be just an exercise in frustration. And also, the fact that wild cards are allowed means new players have a distinct disadvantage.
Yep.
They don't have all those cards, right? So, but it's a great start. If this is how they want to do things, I think it's fantastic. Hopefully they build on this idea and make it even more interesting. I would like to see maybe not the exact same deck for the Lich King every time. The one little rule is cool, but maybe they could do, if you play this deck, he has this actual, he doesn't actually just have the same 30 cards. He has different cards, and so the fight is completely different. Or, force us to, use cards or things like that where we have to then, it's a deck building thing that's not built around some cheese strategy. It's you must use these cards, and then you can fill in the rest 10 more cards or something like that. There could be a lot of things they do with the next set of this, and I'm excited to see what they come up with.
I've just been laddering. I haven't actually beaten the Lich King. I don't have Arthas, and I'm sure some people out there will be shocked, but eventually I will just get bored.
I thought that would be the first thing you were going to do.
I thought it would be too, but I kept getting dailies for good decks like Druid and Paladin, so I just kept playing Druid and Paladin, and it's going really well, and I'm enjoying it, and I'm playing aggro for the first time in a very long time, and I'm being a terrible person. I'm being part of the problem, and I'm having a really good time doing it.
I mean, I held off on the adventure for a while because I just wanted to get out there and ladder, but it was just something I wanted to make sure I got done before it was too long in the tooth, right? I didn't want to be doing it a month from now, Getting that, it's like an accomplishment, right? And it actually got me kind of excited to go back and try old heroic adventures that I haven't really done, just to be okay, that's
actually
a check
what I've
mark
been doing
off of my list of things I haven't done in Hearthstone. It's like a little achievement. Wow, you'd run around and collect old mounts that you had no reason to even need, but it's okay, I got that. I'm another Drake guy now. I just wanted to be I'm an Arthas guy now. When I queue into ladder, people see the Arthas and they go, oh damn, okay, gotta take this guy seriously. Got my Arthas portrait, my legend card back, and I'm like, what's up, noob? Let's go.
my favorite thing was I think it was the day after Lich King was added. My buddy who goes by God's Wounds on BattleNet, who is legend every season and is always trying to teach me how to play the game better, got on and was just like, you need to challenge me. You need to challenge me right now. And we get in, and of course he has the Arthas portrait. He just wanted to show it to me.
Feather in the cap.
It's great. It's so freaking shiny.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. The artwork on it is head and tails above all the other portrait artwork. It's so good.
As it should be. It's the best video game character ever. So it should be the best. It should be heads and tails above the rest.
Does he give you different dudes, or are his dudes still the same?
They're the animation when it comes out, it's even shinier than usual, but it's the same.
The animation's different. The dudes look the same. You know what would be cool though is if you played. This would be like a cool little Easter egg. Is if you then played the Death Knight paladin card, it turned you into the Lich King instead of Death Knight Uther.
Super disappointed that isn't what happens. I knew ahead of time. They told us before it even came out that listen, there will not be alternate art for the other hero portraits that you can purchase. But I was just holding out hope for that specific little hidden interaction.
They already have the art, right? I mean, you just turn into the Lich King.
Everyone's been staring at it for almost a week now. That art is in the game.
Yeah, I don't know. Missed opportunity, Blizzard.
Hey,
get on it.
They could always
future patch.
They could always patch it in, right? Or, I don't know. You know what? I have a new goal. I'm just going to go get hired by Team 5, and I will make that my mission. If it gets me fired within the first week, that will be my mission.
You're just going to go and secretly code it in?
Yep.
So the other thing I did think about the beating of the Lich King 9 times with all the classes, it would be cool if then you could turn into, like, you could then maybe play as the Lich King against other players who would beat it, like almost like a special little permanent tavern brawl where you could just like Lich King versus Lich King battle other players who had beat him 9 times just for fun.
Willie Dills would like to challenge you to a solo adventure, and you go in, and bam, you're the Lich King. Like,
yeah, and we're both the Lich King. That'd be sweet.
That'd be badass. I would so sign up for that. But you're right. Like, this is all really cool stuff, and I don't think I don't think we're all here to say that it was necessarily a failure. Although it sounds like Joss, you were a little annoyed by the Lich King.
Well, I mean, I guess I was annoyed by the need to use aggro to get it done really fast. You know, like that was just like the easy way to do it, I guess. And
it's the easy. It's not you don't have to, but it is.
You don't have
you
to,
can
but it's like
right?
Yeah. And so the fact that it was just like play the weakest creatures in Warcraft with like Murlocs, right? And you could just swarm the Lich King with Murlocs and you win. It just, I don't know, it just felt a little bit kind of crappy to me because I tried to just kind of like figure out my own stuff and like do all these little things around all the rules and stuff. And, you know, I think I got him down with one class. I can't remember, it might have been Paladin. And I was just like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then I was like, but I mean, I really just kind of want to beat him before he plays Frostmourne, so I don't have to kill all those 2/6s. What if I just like go super, super aggro? And it worked. And then I was like, oh, this works, man. Like,
well,
I kind of wish that there wasn't
it's
just
kind
like
of
that point on turn 7 where it kind of like gets super, super hard, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so hard because he's immune when he's got Frostmourne. You have to kill all these 2/6s, and then after you do that, then he's got, you know, all his minions back again, and he's like hitting you for increasing damage every turn. So it's like he has like built-in fatigue. It's just like that turn 7 timer, I think, is what kind of got to me. Was I was just like, man, if I can't get him basically dead by turn 7, then I might as well just restart. So
well, there's ways around that, though.
That just felt bad.
I think it's important that you can cheese him, though, because for newer players, they're not going to have the cards necessary to build a long-term strategy. So I'm okay with it being something that you can just out aggro, because it gives a newer player a chance to get the Arthas portrait without having to go back and have Kel'Thuzad and do all these weird things where they put taunts up that the Lich King can't kill, which was a viable strategy a few times. But the other thing you can do about that turn 7 thing is, if you drop a Doomsayer on your turn 7, he immediately kills all of his guys, plays a thing, and then he attacks your face with the Frostmourne, and then next turn they all blow up. So there's always like a way around it.
And yeah, there are ways around it, but the ways around it again are relying on basically a perfect draw. through your first like 5 to 6 turns. If you then don't draw your Doomsayer and you can't play it on turn 6, you just have to restart again. So yeah,
fair enough. But I mean,
I just got a little bit burnt out on it.
I don't think there's like a way to make it so that it's not draw dependent. I mean, it's still a card game, so
yeah.
And at least they did fix where the restart, because I remember in older adventures before they had it this way, like you would restart and it wouldn't just immediately be like, okay, here we go again. Like now it's like very easy, and also from the actual choose screen, you can back out directly into your collection, build your deck, and then you go right back to that screen rather than having to back out of the adventure, which used to be the way it worked too. So they've definitely quality of lifed it up a little bit.
Oh, they've 100% kind of streamlined the experience for those who want to experiment and figure it out on their own. I didn't even think about that. When on the choose screen and being able to go straight to your collection, when I started doing it, I think I just kind of assumed it was always there, and I forgot that it was a thing that was added.
Yeah, no, there was a time when you had to leave the entire solo adventure, go to your collection, build your deck, go back in. Yeah.
Well, maybe now I'll go
and you
back
had
and
the one deck thing. Remember, there was like a time where it wasn't even like all your decks. You had to like build the deck specifically. I don't know. It used to not be very friendly.
Well.
I feel like it was very, very recently that this was added, because I've like you, Dills, have been going back and playing through the heroic adventures, and I either didn't realize or wasn't able to as recently as like a month and a half ago. I wasn't actually able to go back, and like I had to go all the way out and then all the way back in, and so I feel like this was a recent addition, probably because, you know, they had new solo content coming out.
Yeah. And thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, good changes though.
By the way, I will say this. I do think there's a lot of cool. This was a shorter overall adventure as far as wings and total bosses was concerned. But just having the Lich King, you know, without heroic, obviously, but just having like the heroic be the Lich King, I thought was a fantastic way to kind of introduce that kind of hard difficulty. It felt in a way kind of like, you know, Ulduar, you didn't just click, I want heroic now. Like, you would do something to make it heroic, right?
Yep.
And I like that idea. And the idea of I choose a different class, that's what makes it hard. He does something different no matter which class I do. Like, this was a fantastic idea on its,
well, it was like a way to bring in the class
so.
Challenges, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
so, yeah, good. More of this, and then keep expanding on these ideas. I love it, Blizzard. Keep doing it.
Yeah. Again, like I said, I've only played up through Sindragosa, but everything so far has been really well themed, has really pulled like kind of on the nostalgia strings that I was hoping that it would hit. If you had done the raid before, which I have, Sindragosa especially
many times.
The fact that she 100% screws you over for having spells, I thought was awesome. But yeah,
she also screws you over for having minions, because she keeps freezing them if they're there. Yeah, that fight was kind of funny. I was like, wait, so minions are bad, spells are bad.
I did.
I guess weapons.
I did Handbuff, and I got the what's the Grime Street dude, the 4/4 that buffs your dudes in your hand by 1/1 every time he lives.
The Grime Street Enforcer.
Enforcer. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I just somehow managed to keep one of those alive forever, and most of the minions that I played after that point were like 18 and up.
Okay, there you go. That'll do it. The problem though with it too is that I just queued Jade Druid for a lot of those earlier fights before Lich King, and it just worked.
Yeah. No, what? Listen, I don't know. I'm not sure you can complain when you're not making a concerted effort to be creative in the way that you defeat these bosses.
No, but you know, when you don't know the fight, like, you just kind of queue something, right?
No, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like back in the day,
and then when you one-shot it, you're like, oh.
Like back in the day, you would queue Zoo a lot, right? When you were doing adventures, you'd be like, okay, well, Zoo will like just give me a chance at it. And with Jade Druid, I was like, well, okay, that's gonna be my base deck, and then I would queue it, and then be like, oh, that just worked. It didn't matter what the thing was. Like, it just Jade Druid was so good, it just worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it did.
Jade Druid works against the Lich King too, by the way.
It does, yeah, you're right.
That's good to know.
Jade Druid.
That's the way to get your
Well, that's good because it completes the narrative. The narrative has come full circle for this expansion. You can kill the Lich King with the deck that everyone wants to murder. So, anyways, we got some Hearthstone news to talk about. Before we get into that, let's thank our sponsors for this episode. Harrys.com is back to sponsor this episode of The Angry Chicken. You can go to harrys.com/TAC. to go and take a look at their high quality yet affordable razors for shaving your face, or whatever else you need to shave. We are, all three of us, converted Harry's fans. That's what I believe all three of us are still using as our go-to razor of choice. And
it's spread to our families too, thanks to the Father's Day promotion. And then my brother was like, "Hey, I want to try those." I was like, "Well, go to harrys.com/TAC." Yeah. So to the listeners out there, it's not just on this show where we shill harrys.com. It actually has taken over conversations at dinner tables when we go and have like family outings and whatnot. It starts to sound a little bit like an infomercial. if the subject of shaving actually is brought up, but you can actually try it for yourself. Harry's is still doing their popular trial set for free promotion. It comes with a razor handle, a 5-blade cartridge, shaving gel. It is free when you sign up. All you have to do is pay for shipping, and you can get that offer by going to harrys.com/TAC right now, or in 5 minutes, or in 10, or tomorrow when you wake up and you realize your neckbeard's looking a little scraggly. So we thank them for the support. We thank you for listening and using that web address. Now, let's head into this week's Hearthstone news.
Good news, everyone!
So Gamescom was last week. We got a little bit of Hearthstone lovin'. We talked about the Fireside brawl already with Raven, but Dills, did you have any points you wanted to make about the Fireside brawl, the million hit point Lich King that everyone over in Germany had to slay?
I mean, it's very cool. I'm curious to see how it tends to work outside of a con atmosphere, because I would like it sounds like something that would be like, I would like to see it where you have like maybe a tavern brawl leaderboard, right? So, or like you get together, sorry, not tavern brawl, but a Fireside Gathering leaderboard where you you go to your local Fireside Gathering and then you slay the Lich King in X number of battles, and then it shows like everyone can go and see, and then it's actually like a competitive thing. I would love to see something like that happen. Still kind of unclear on exactly how it all works, because it was, I don't know, it wasn't that interesting to watch. So I didn't watch much of it, but I imagine it's more fun to play, right? To be around other people and all be kind of doing the same thing together at a Fireside Gathering. I love the idea. A million hit points might be a little much at my local Fireside Gathering where there's like 20 guys.
It won't have that. It won't have that.
Yeah.
It's scalable, right? By
yes.
the innkeeper?
The innkeeper can set the health.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, figures out what it should be or whatever. Okay. But well, there you go. That's great. Fantastic.
But that being said, I like your idea of a high score, or like a scoreboard, Dills, as long as it is only 3 characters and I can spell ass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I think they had that at Gamescom, didn't they?
BUT, all that stuff. Yeah.
Did they have a high score?
Yeah, I think they had a kind of running tally, top 10 or whatever.
Was it in the game, or was it something that they were?
Or were they just keeping?
No, it wasn't in the game. No, it was like a board.
I want it in the game.
I want it in the game. Damn it! It's a game. Okay. It's right there. It can do it for you. Why doesn't it do it for you?
I want it to pop up at the end and let me choose my 3 letters.
Oh, that's fantastic. And then we also got Hearthstone's first honest cinematic, our first true cinematic for this card game that we have been doing a show about for over 200 episodes. We just now got a cinematic. I know we talked a little bit about it last week on the Hangout, but for those who didn't tune in for that, around the table, what did everyone think of the cinematic? Joss, I'll pitch to you first.
The animation was great. I really liked the kind of like Disney Pixar type style. It was really super cute. I loved, there was one specific scene where the like wizard guy is like has the little girl, and there's like all the cards are swirling around them and stuff, and he's like showing her the amazingness of deck building. And that was beautiful. I really liked that. But that song, it was terrible.
I like the song. It was really
I hated the song.
Yeah, I hate the song. I'm sorry. The problem that I have with the song is it's just not a good song. Like, the lyrics are fine. It's very Hearthstone. It's very inside baseball.
They use some card emotes to, deliver some of the lines, which was very like say Inside Baseball. It was very fan servicey. It's like that's what that card actually says.
But like okay, but so I heard, I think Gary, you had mentioned, and other people have mentioned too, that it was very Disney-esque Beauty and the Beast type of feel to a lot of it.
Very Gaston at some
point. The problem is that the songs in Beauty and the Beast are actually really good, right?
Yeah.
And so like they're written well and they're performed well and all that kind of stuff. And I just didn't like the song. So
all right, listen. Okay.
I can't like a song I didn't like.
I gotta defend Team 5 or Blizzard in their cinematics department just a little bit. When have they ever done anything like this? Okay, they've written a couple cheesy, like 20-second diddlies.
I mean, I love the Carazon song. I love
called the diddlies.
Whatever.
It's a big undertaking for sure. I mean, look, Disney obviously has people who've been doing this for years, doing those songs.
Who's been doing this for years? Russell Brower. Blizzard just let go? Russell Brower.
Well, hold on.
Mistakes were made.
But he's still working as a contractor, as far as I know. I don't know who did work on this, so I'm a little worried. Maybe it was Russell Brower. I don't know. So for all you know, he worked on it. I don't know who actually made it.
Nobody's perfect. If it was,
I don't know. I thought this was really out of Blizzard's comfort zone, and I thought for a company whose cinematics are typically hyper realized, extremely like the textures are out of this world. It's skulls and spikes and chains and blood and tusks, like. I don't know. I thought they did a really slamming job with this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. Again, it's like this isn't really. I don't know. I don't think this is. I don't consider this a cinematic. I think they still have their cinematic as the first thing they ever put out, right? Which was the like. You can play with the whatever, or you can forget all that and just have fun. Like,
but
that
it's not
was
a cinematic.
That's the cinematic.
That's not a cinematic, though. It's just 2D.
That's what they call it. They call that the cinematic.
Yeah, but
they call this an animated short.
Okay. Oh, do you think but it's not the cinematics department. I don't think that was something that they slaved over. That was not an intro to a WoW expansion or StarCraft 2 or Diablo 3.
It wasn't like World of Warcraft's initial cinematic, right? That everybody like just slobbered all over, right? Wanted to play the game immediately. But it was Hearthstone style, right? It was like that because it's a card game. There's not moving characters, so to me, it still falls into the cinematic role where it just fits the theme of a card game. Where rather than moving characters, it's a little closer to, kind of like block animation. Like it's like a South Park, but with good art kind of thing. But I would still consider that the cinematic. This I think is just like an extra. Like animated short is what they call it on their YouTube channel, and that makes sense to me. Like, it is. It's like just a little fun extra thing, and it is fun. And it is well done. Just the song is bad. Like that's the only thing. And the problem is, when the song is like half of the thing, it's hard for that to make the whole thing like recoverable. So it's like I'm not putting the animations obviously super great.
It was stellar.
And I love the inside baseball aspect. I love all the stuff. But yeah, it's like it's so hard to put something like that out where it's built around a song, and then the song
isn't great. It's not really catchy. Like I can't sing it to you, but I can sing every line from every Beauty and the Beast song ever.
Go right ahead.
No, I'm
not.
By the
way,
no,
all right,
here we go. In 3, 2.
I made a mistake. But Dills, you actually made a really good point when we were doing the hangout last week. The other thing is they don't really show a whole lot of Hearthstone itself. They show the game being played a couple of times, and I think that's where the animated short really was amazing. Like seeing those little animated characters and like the polymorph and the little sheep pops up, like those were super, super cool moments, and I wish that they'd done a little bit more of that.
I don't want them, again, I don't want them to like not do more of this, because I think this is very cool. I think they have a long ways to go here, and like you said, Garrett, it's the people from Disney and stuff. They've been doing this for years, and Team 5 isn't necessarily been doing this for as long, or whoever they actually contracted to do this. But it's like again, it's kind of like when they put out the Guac Boy stuff, and you're like, oh, kind of missed the mark, but I'll give you a pass. It's like here, kind of missed the mark, but I'll give you a pass. Like it's. it's heading the right direction again, and I'm glad it's there. I'm glad it exists.
You will hear no pushback from me on wanting more of the actual game of Hearthstone, because there was not a lot of it in there, and the little bit that was awesome. The little
the
slap hand fighting Stormwind guards as the board goes by. That little Deathwing that I need in my life.
Yep. I was going to pull it out before the show, but yeah, that Deathwing looks I mentioned it on the Hangout, looks just like their little Deathwing pop that you can buy from the Blizzard store.
I disagree.
It's adorable and I love it.
Okay. All right, I don't want to crap on something you like, but I think pop vinyls generally kind of suck.
I love pop vinyls. But their Deathwing looks exactly like that.
But I want one with the tongue hanging out. It was like panting like a freaking dog. I want that. That is merch I will buy immediately. It's money that no longer belongs to me if they make it. But okay, fine, whatever. I guess we don't agree. That's all fine. But I'm looking forward to seeing more.
Look, a song being good and bad is completely subjective. You can like a song and I can think it's crap, right? I mean, that's
like music.
That's how art works, right? That's like, yeah. So that's totally fine. You don't have to like convince somebody to like something they don't like, or convince somebody to not like something they do like, right?
Boy bands have bet their entire careers on that exact theme.
Yeah, like NSYNC is the best and Backstreet Boys sucks. Like we all know this, right?
Whoa! All right, I'm hanging up. We are not friends anymore. Show over.
I believe my wife just bought a plane ticket to Austin to beat up Dills.
Okay. But yeah, see, like you get to have the choice, right?
Yeah, so
that's the whole beauty of it.
Yeah, or if you grew up in the '90s and early 2000s, like I did, you hate them all. They're all the same. They're all manufactured. They're terrible.
Don't talk crap about my boy JT, all right?
He is the exception that proves the rule. So, anyways, yeah, I don't know. In Gamescom overall, by the way, I really enjoyed. I was surprised how much I had the Blizzard streams on, because I wasn't expecting a lot of announcements. We didn't really get a lot of announcements, but their presentations were just extremely fun. And my God, that concert on what was it, Thursday? Where they brought Russell Brower out and he was conducting a live orchestra. It was in partnership with Video Games Live. I kept that thing going the whole damn time. I wish I was there. But the other thing that happened at Gamescom is the HGG finals, which final game came down to Druid winning. So I was like, oh no, not this, not like this. But
it was an unfortunate kind of sequencing of how the classes worked. We're gonna try that HGG format for the next season of the DHL, because it is kind of cool, right? So like you get options in each game, but you can only play each class once, right? Win or lose.
Are you doing it for awesome. a single player format, or are you having people form teams?
Like, so you'll have 5 classes in a best of 5, right? And you just pick one of your classes. There's no bans or anything. You just pick one of your classes for game 1.
Okay.
Win or lose, you can't use that class again, right? So, yeah, it seems like a cool, interesting kind of format to use for even a single player type event. So it was very fun to watch, but it is kind of funny how much strategy came down to, like, do we go with Druid first and try to win, or do we try to avoid the fact that they're going to pick Druid first, the mirror match? And I really like the format a lot, and it's perfect for a team event, but I think it can also work for singles. So, yeah, all of it was very fun to watch. Team USA, so close. Had to win with Rogue there at the end, and Amnesiac storming off. He was really he was playing up the heel role pretty well, which was, I think, hilarious to watch. But yeah, I think the best team that brought the best decks and played the best won, which is what you want out of a Hearthstone tournament, right?
Yeah. Even though I during that Big Priest game in the finals, I was screaming at my television.
Big Priest is so frustrating to watch
and to play
from the other side. Yeah,
it's frustrating on all sides.
Yeah.
I've gone up
the ultimate
against
high roll deck.
I've gone up against it a few times since Raven was on last week, and I think I'm straight 50-50 in winning/losing to it. And when you win, it doesn't feel like a game, and when you lose, it doesn't feel like a game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just feels like sometimes you win, you're like, oh well, I guess you just didn't draw good, and then you lose, and you're like, well, nothing I could have done.
Yeah, it's weird. I know there were a few people on YouTube last week who were like losing their collective shit over us complaining about Big Priest versus J Druid.
It's some people's favorite deck ever, you know.
Yeah. Right. No,
and if you don't like it, you don't like fun.
The number one pushback I saw from last week was, oh my god, guys, why are you complaining about Big Priest when J Druid so busted? But I still contest that when you win against Jade Druid or lose against it, it still kind of feels like you played a game of Hearthstone. It doesn't really feel like a game of Hearthstone.
There were still some decisions, yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's just strange. Sure. No, it's not as rampant. No, it is not as good. I am not arguing any of that. I'm just arguing about the feel of playing.
It's that high roll feel that it's very hard to feel like there was something you could do. And that, I think, is like the number one thing. Pirate Warrior feels this way too, which is why it's so frustrating for people for so long. And sometimes you're just like, oh, well, he just 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop, Arcanite Reaper. I can't. What could I have done, right? And that's the kind of feeling that you talk about with Big Priest. I think with Jade Druid, it's the most powerful, but sometimes you can kind of outplay them, right, over the course of a game and find victories. Like the deck we're going to talk about later, the Handbuff Paladin. I did pretty well against Jade Druid because I could plan things out, right? Save silences for specific moments and things like that, and really kind of force the game to move in my favor. And with Big Priest, you're like, oh, Obsidian statue on 4. Oh, it's back on 5. Well, we lose,
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
I had a game against the Big Priest right before the show, and it was just I just kind of had to play it, assuming they did not have resurrect effects, and they didn't, and I won. If they had, I would have lost.
That's how you beat them.
Yeah,
that's how you beat them. Is they don't draw resurrect.
They don't get good cards. Yeah,
yeah. And believe me, it certainly can feel that way at times against aggro druids as well. It's just like, oh man, I don't have a way to kill Flappy Bird if that comes down on 1. Hope they don't have it on 1. 1 comes. Oh, thank God they didn't have it. All right, cool. Let's have a game. But but back to HGG. Overall, I think it was really great. And even though Jade Druid was the final deck played and the one that cinched it for Czech Republic, I still think all the games, especially in the finals, they were really solid.
Well, even though it did come down to Jade Druid, I mean, they put themselves in a position over the past how many months to actually win with Jade Druid in that last game. It's not like they just took Jade Druid and rolled over everybody for 3 months and it was boring to watch. Like, there were a lot of really interesting decisions. There were a lot of amazing teams. I mean, the Canadian team, they were out, a few rounds ago, but they did so well. I was so proud of them, and they were such great players. Like, I would have liked to see them go further, but still, I think they were, top 16? So, I mean, they still did really, really well, and I was so happy to see them go as far as they did. And there were a lot of teams like that, and I like the idea of rooting for your country. I thought that was really, really cool. So
yeah, but it kind of screwed me in the end, because when they asked me to pick who was going to win, I was like, well, I think that the Czech Republic is probably going to win, but how could I not pick USA? Yeah, I was like, USA is Dog and Firebat, who look, they're good players, but let me just be honest here. They're not grinding out tournaments every day the same way that guys like Stan Sivka and the rest of the Czech Republic team are. They're memers and they're streamers and they're dreamers and casters and whatever. I don't know. But I still had to pick them. So I got shafted on my packs because of nationality.
You picked with your heart instead of your brain.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pack per round they advance, right? So you only missed out on 1 pack.
I think I get 1 pack just for actually making a pick, but they were out in the first round of 4 or whatever, right?
Oh, so, gotcha. Oh, you're right. Yeah.
They lost their first match, so.
Okay. Yeah. Sad day. Means
whatever.
That means I also.
It's always fun to watch Amnesiac talk a bunch of crap and then storm off the stage. I enjoyed that. And his USA headband and socks.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're a wrestling fan.
And I like the kid, but I understand the hate for him because he is a cocky little bastard. But it doesn't bother me. It's I find it's entertaining, right? It's
entertaining for you.
Yeah, it's like watching the Conor McGregor Mayweather fight. You're like, I find these guys to be entertaining me. Although I don't like them as people necessarily, in their their cockiness wouldn't make me want to befriend them. But I'm entertained right now.
I avoided that entirely and played pen and paper RPGs with my friends that night.
Yeah, I mostly did. I got roped in by the moment of it where everybody was talking about it. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll watch it.
I give up.
And then I was like, this is why I like wrestling better at the end.
Yes. Well, a quick update on ladder changes before we move on to strategy and talk about Handbuff Paladin. There was a Q&A that took place at Gamescom. There wasn't a lot of new information, which is why we're not going to spend a lot of time on this. But Ben Bro did give a short update on what they're aiming at improving on the ladder. He said, "We are hard at work on changes to the ladder. I think there's a couple of big opportunities to make things better. One is to reduce the amount of grind for top-level players. Two, adding a bit of progression for players that are stuck at the very bottom of the ladder. And three is increasing the win rate for brand new players and making the new player experience better." He said that I think that third thing will have to come later since we're focused on the first two right now, but we're excited.
Well, and they've talked a little bit in the past about how they've been focusing on fixing like things in the background to make the new player experience better. So I think that they've been working on that already. So now they're kind of taking a hint from the community at large, and they're saying, okay, look, we need to fix this grind. Ladder floors were a good start, but it's not enough. So, you know, these issues are something that needs to be dealt with for our existing player base. So, you know, we've done some tweaks on the new player side. Let's see what we can do for existing players.
Yeah. I would definitely like to see that first point addressed in some way, shape, or form, because if you can better separate out the consistent top players from the pool, that also helps everyone else out, because you're not at rank 16 on day 5 of a new season playing against a bunch of people who were like legend last season or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does kind of so it's what is kind of also happening right now with like Druid, right? It's like Druid is the best class, so it makes everybody else feel worse when they're playing other stuff, right? So here's a bunch of like the best players down here playing with other players, making them feel bad for not being as good, and so you kind of end up feeling bad about playing Hearthstone if you play the first 5 days of a season. Mm-hmm. And you should never feel bad about playing Hearthstone. It should always be, even win or lose, like kind of a rewarding experience, right? And that's kind of the goal. So yeah, do that first one effectively, and you help everybody. Because the real grind for the Legend players is once they get to Legend and they're trying to get to, top 100, top 10, number 1, right? I agree with Ben Brode too that number 3 here is like the least important. So get these first 2 correct, and 3 is like, okay, now let's see if we can figure this one out too. I want the change to come sooner rather than later too. So.
Yeah, and the thing is, if they figure out how to get the Legend players out of rank 17 at the start of the season, and if they figure out how to give a little more progression to players at the bottom of the ladder, then the third thing might just work itself out, and they might not have to do anything if they do the first 2 things.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now,
that's kind of
how
what
do you feel they do progression, by the way, for like besides stars? I'm kind of curious what that is. Yeah.
I don't either. That's why, even though this didn't have, again, a lot of news in it, I want to put it in here because any talk about this highly interests me. I want to know what they're thinking about doing, because right now, even with rank floors, we still have this it's purely based on wins, where you are rank-wise. And we've had long conversations on this podcast in the past, and I don't necessarily want to get back into that, but about, should MMR come into it in any way, shape, or form? You can't compare it 1-to-1 with other Blizzard games that use MMR, because this is a card game, and the random aspect of it kind of throws
makes MMR really hard. Yeah,
right. It throws a huge monkey wrench in that whole situation. But there's got to be something with placement. I feel like they might. I don't know. That's where I think that they might be looking, maybe placing people higher each season reset than they have been previously, because to me, I think it is too low. I think, if you're a Legend, you should be placed higher in a rank after the season reset.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind the idea of just placing you to the bottom of the floor below where you got before. So if you were Legend last season, you get placed at rank 5. If you were rank 5, you get placed at rank 10. Just at the bottom of the next lowest rank, so you drop down once. That would be, I think, good, because then you still have your chunks of people are still spread out in the same kind of ratios that they were the previous season, but they still have to progress a little bit. So
I don't know. The problem with that, though, is then you end up over time where everybody's just Legend. Like, everybody would be at rank 5 when the season starts, because if you took me and did that every season, like, I would start at rank 5 every season. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a Legend player every single season, right?
Yeah, but it's skewed, though. I think all of us have a a skewed view of it. You're still told at the end of a season where you place percentage wise, and 15 is still top 25% as far as I know. So it's it's
but
not
I
like
mean,
every player ever.
If you shorten the grind from literally like just one ranked floor, like eventually the entire player base moves up too far, right? And then you kind of reintroduce the same problem where, people who get to rank 10 every season, once they get knocked down to rank 10, they'll get to rank 5 the next season. Then they'll get knocked down to rank 5, and then eventually they'll get to legend,
I was saying
they'll be knocked down to, what I mean?
If you were in rank 5, you drop down to 10. So you still have a whole floor to go to get back to where you were.
Yeah,
like a whole set of 5.
Rank 10 to legend, they'll get like a lot more players will get there. Like so much so that you'll reintroduce the fact that these players still aren't at the same level as these players. Like I like that idea of like definitely placing people higher, but I think you have to do it a little more based on some sort of not just like something like solid like that really shortens the grind too much. You kind of have to like look at actual like chunks of players, like slice them up in a way that makes sense. And Blizzard obviously has the numbers to do that. So
it is really difficult though too, because I mean, like even if you start talking about, because I mean the only real MMR that you can kind of measure, I would think, would be something like win rate, and then it's like, if you look at just your win percentage over the course of the season, if I play one game and I win it and then I stop, then does that mean I need to go up to rank 1 at the start of the next season?
Well, no. There would be a certain number of games, like the 30, arena runs and things like that, and whatever. And that's kind of what I think when they talk about the progression for lower ranked players is maybe they start to give you progression based on games played too, right? So it's not just because there's like a lot of people who just have a sub 50% win rate who only climb because every now and then they'll get a win streak going, right? So that's the only way they really climb, but they always just kind of stay static, right? And then they don't feel like they're ever progressing. So what you maybe can do is give them some sort of progression just based on you played X number of games last season. We give you a star just for playing 10 games or whatever, right? So no matter what your win rate was, like every 10 games you get like an extra star bonus just for like playing a lot, right? And then you kind of end up forcing those people to feel like, oh, if I just keep playing, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
There's lots of ideas.
10 gold and a bonus star for playing at a certain number of games.
Yeah, like there's lots of ideas. It's like, but just, man, in practicality, you have to make sure that what you don't do is reintroduce the same problems, right? Which is putting players into ranks where they maybe shouldn't be, and then making the game unfun for them. So
yeah,
it's tough. I don't envy their position because
I'm not saying
make a perfect ladder system, and it never will, honestly.
Yeah.
But
no, not at all. This is not one of the times where I look at Team Farm like, it's so simple. What are you waiting for? It's like, no, I know exactly why this is taking a while, because every time we talk about it, every time anyone talks about it, I haven't seen an answer out there that I 100% agree with.
This is like maybe the most complex thing outside of balance that you have in Hearthstone right now.
I'm just happy to know.
Well, it's its own kind of balance, right?
What was that, Joss?
I said it's its own kind of balance.
Yeah.
No,
it is balanced
absolutely.
in its own. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna wrap up the news swath for now. Let's talk some Handbuff Paladin.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
All right, so if you're curious about the deck list that we were taking a look at, we pulled this right off of disguisedtoast.com. This is Brian Kibler's Handbuff Paladin. A lot of folks have been writing in and tweeting at us about this deck. A lot of people have been sending it to me specifically because like, Garrett, it's finally here, a buff Paladin that works. And they're right. This deck is working out real well for me, and I find it immensely fun.
It is. It's a fun deck. It's also a deck that runs Prince Kaliseth, which I think a lot of people were wondering about this. And my early argument about Kaliseth as compared to running 2 Grime Street Outfitters instead is, I think, still kind of up in the air. I'm not convinced one way or the other yet, but I do know that the Kaliseth thing does work. It is viable. And when you draw it, it's incredibly powerful because it's deck buffing, right? So you buff 26 cards with it potentially. So I don't think you can for serious say which one is better though. It's like the problem with this version that I ran into is that there is 2 1-drops and 1 2-drop, right? And so aggro kind of runs you over. And, and even sometimes when I do draw perfect, it still kind of runs me over. Where at least if I run the Grime Street Outfitters, I can also run other 2-drops, and I can at least be playing 1/1s on 2 and battle back a little bit, right? So for people who don't have Keleseth, have no fear. You can still take the shell of this deck, put back in like the Grime Street Outfitters and some other 2-drops, and kind of have a go at it. So I actually posted another version in the show notes, which is also Keleseth, but a bunch of other different types of cards that people do. But I don't want people to think like, oh my god, Keleseth is the only way to do this now. Because
no. It certainly isn't. And you can have. I've had multiple games where I just never drew him, and I still won.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah, you can still do just fine because you still have 4 other ways to buff your hand, right?
Yeah.
So
the thing,
and you just have generally strong cards.
Yeah. So Delzir, anytime we cover a deck here, you always talk about things you can take out and things you can consider putting in. You've already done that a little bit with your Grime Street Outfitter talk. I'm trying to figure out where to fit any draw at all.
Yeah, draw is an issue.
I have had multiple games where it just seems like the needle dipped into E.
So I'll tell you this. The one thing, because this is just a minion-based deck, right?
Yes.
So everything about it is just minion.
And it's heavy. I've had so many times where my hand has like 5, 6, 7 cards in it because it's like turn 4 and I've got all 7 and 8 mana cards.
You got your Bone Mares and your Lich Kings
exactly. And I'm like,
that's the
I'm
opposite
busting the
issue.
crap out of them, but yeah.
No,
but
that's
I mean,
true.
like,
because like I said,
Divine Favor is not really an option, or at least I found. I very rarely have significantly less cards than my opponent.
Yeah, no, Divine Favor would not be the option.
Yeah.
It would be minion-based draw options. So Acolyte of Pain is something I've seen a lot of people mess around with in Handbuff, because obviously making Acolyte of Pain a 2/4, a 3/5, a 4/6, that's just an insane card, right? Draws you a ton of cards. But I found in the past playing Handbuff decks that Cult Master was a fantastic option for drawing, because you play a Cult Master and, you know, as a 4/2 body, it kind of sucks. But this deck is just kind of built around having minions on the board that are hard to remove, and then next turn you use them to trade with a Cult Master that's a 5/3 or a 6/4 instead of a 4/2, and then the Cult Master tends to stick around, and you can continue doing it. Plus, all of a sudden, your tokens become, you know, draws. I think that's one of the best ways to find draw in this deck, and I think you could probably remove a Corpse Taker or a Spellbreaker for a single Cult Master and suddenly shore up one of its biggest weaknesses.
Yeah, because you bring up a really good point. How else are you removing anything in this deck? You have 2 Rallying Blades. That is it.
That's it.
Your only
everything is minion trading.
Your only removal is minions. Although a lot of times your minions survive because of hand buffing. So
this is the problem with this deck that when I lose, it's because it was aggro druid and they flooded the board and I don't have consecrate, right? They played living mana and I said, oh, well, I'm dead.
And there's no drakes either, right? Because that's kind of the trade-off, right?
Sure.
Primordial Drake, but there's none of those either.
So you'll notice in the other version that I posted, there's 1 Rallying Blade and 1 True Silver, because also sometimes like Rallying Blade is perfect on like turn 2 with the coin or turn 3. You could kill off. There's so many 3 health minions out there. You know, you kill Murloc War Leaders and things like that. But sometimes you get to the late game and all of a sudden Rallying Blade is just not going to do the job, right? So True Silver is an interesting addition there. Also, you notice in the other version that I posted, there is a Fight Promoter, because you make a lot of big dudes, and Fight Promoter draws you 2 cards. And sometimes you can play, you know, a low-cost dude who has 6 health, and suddenly you're drawing 2 cards. So that's another like option to draw with this deck. So it's hard though, because you don't want to, with a Handbuff Paladin, you don't want to put in Consecrate. You don't want to put in a bunch of spells, because you want your hand to be full of minions when you play those hand buffing cards, right? You want to get the most value you can. And so it's a tricky deck, and one I think that takes a lot of practice to really understand and play perfectly. But it can high roll the hell out of you and just curve out, you know, Smuggler's Run on 1, Keleseth on 2, Stonehill Defender on 3, and but now it's, you know, a 2/5, and then suddenly just run away, right, with the game. So, and I find it to be very satisfying to beat Jade Druid with, because it actually has a good record against that. But you're going to suck against all the aggro decks.
I was going to say, and that was my big problem. So I was playing some yesterday. I think I ended up getting basically my 15 games in, and I played with this deck. And I was just, so I'm at rank 5 still. And everything I queued into, with the exception of one super ridiculous healed for like 90 over the course of the game elemental mage, it was all aggro. And I was just getting totally run over before I could do anything, unless I had the super perfect draw. So I think I ended up with like around 50% win rate, because it was just like aggro was just chewing me up.
Yeah, I went 7-1 the first day with this that I played it. So I played it on, I think, Sunday, or I can't remember, one of the days. Went like 7-1, and then played it again yesterday, and won my first 3 games, and then went like 1 out of the next 6 or something like that, because it's just all aggro druid. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I'm at rank 4 near the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
everyone's
that's what
just trying to aggro themselves up to legend before the season ends.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I definitely saw an easier time with this deck sub rank 10. Then once I got over that hump, it started to kind of chug a bit.
It does really well against slower control decks that allow you to sit there and just buff your hand, and then all of a sudden it's just bomb after bomb after bomb being put onto the board, right? But anybody who's going to pressure you out, it can be very tough. And obviously that's why cards like Corpse Taker and Chillblade Champion are pretty strong in this deck, because they do allow you to have a chance against aggro where you get some of that life back, right? You actually do gain a significant portion of your life back with those cards. And I found a lot to, like, if I was playing against the Hunter, Corpse Taker would just outright win me those types of games, because suddenly they just start going face. Like, they were like burning face with kill commands, and I'm like, Chillblade Champion, and they're like, what? But it's like, it's a 6/5 or something. So I like charge a minion, heal for 6, and it's still on the board, and then I heal for another 6 the next turn. That kind of stuff is your only real chance against the aggro, but against the aggro druid, it doesn't matter, because they just too many
even
minions.
then, yeah, that's a turn 4 play. Turn 3 if I have a coin, and usually against aggro druid, that's way too late.
Yeah, it's like with the Hunter and the Pirates that you can do it. You can come back. It's the aggro druid is just way too powerful right now for this deck. I don't think I beat a single one. Jade Druid I could beat, because they spend a bunch of time ramping, and essentially I'm ramping too, right? If you think about it.
Yeah.
You're not ramping with mana, but you're making cards that cost less mana have more stats. So essentially, you're also ramping.
Yeah. I feel like I've been doing well against Pirate Warrior, and I don't. Think
Pirate Warrior is. Yeah.
I think I've been lucky enough not to have played this deck against an aggro druid.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's like probably 50% of my games have been against druid, and most of them have been against aggro.
Buy a lottery ticket now if you're not playing against a bunch of aggro druid. It is like, because Jade Druid loses to aggro druid, right? This loses to aggro druid.
I certainly have seen plenty of aggro druid, but it's usually, for whatever reason for me, it's when I'm playing aggro druid. Every time I'm like, all right, I'm going back to Handbuff, they kind of disappear, and I end up playing against Pirate Warriors and Priests.
Yeah, Pirate Warriors aren't really a problem very often, because you can, once you get like a Corpse Taker on the board, once you get something Spiked Ridge Steeded, they just concede, right?
Yeah.
Unless they have their one Spellbreaker, they just go away. So
I love playing.
And oftentimes you can get to Tyrion, you get to Lich King. The version that I posted also was running Ragnaros Light Lord, Bolvar Fireblood, and then you Spiked Ridge Steed that, and then they're like, okay, I can't get through 13. Health points plus another 6. So
yeah. The deck I've started to run into that has also been giving me a little bit of trouble with Handbuff is Token Shaman. I've been seeing them a little more often now here at the end.
Yeah, it's anybody who goes wide, right? Anybody who goes super wide on the board. Yeah.
Yeah. So you set up your perfect little board of buffed minions, and then you just get devolved, and you're just like, oh, that hurts. Really
they
stinks.
devolve once you Spiked Ridge Steed. They do, and it's like, Pirate Warrior usually doesn't have more than 2 or 3 minions on the board, right? It's the weapons and the little guys and the early pressure, and then a single like Frothing Berserker that you can't get rid of, and that's how they kill you. So you can fight back against that. But Druid and Shaman, that's 7 guys on the board, like at all times.
Absolutely.
And they're always threatening a Savage Roar or a Bloodlust. So
Yep. Some scary stuff, but But I really like this deck, and I know a lot of listeners are just either don't want to play Druid, but they kind of feel coerced into it. I do think this is a solid deck. Would definitely recommend you go and try it. And also Paladin just in general. I mean, there are mid-range and control lists going around that are doing absolute work out there, so you don't have to play Druid.
Not to mention, you can be Arthas.
Mm-hmm.
With
true.
enough
And
time, you could be Arthas. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this. So I will say that this I think has a positive matchup against Jade Druid. So if Jade Druid's the biggest problem you're having, I had a positive win rate against Jade Druid with it, and they were close matches, definitely. I mean, it oftentimes came down to me saving my Black Knight specifically for a Primordial Drake, or you have to hit like a high priority minion. And also like spell breaking, like right at the end when they bone mare something, and then you get through and you get the last bit of damage in.
Yeah,
you have to plan ahead, but you can beat them pretty regularly.
Yeah, I also found myself kind of looking up my Eldor Peacekeepers and being like, are the Jades going to get big enough that I'm going to need one of you just to live one turn to finish this out? And sometimes the answer is yes.
Yeah. Oh, you got Eldor Peacekeepers, right? Which is like the ultimate way to deal with those super late game bros.
Yep.
But it would be really cool. Like, I still think that there's another way to do. Like, I think what Kibler was going for when he built this version was consistency, right? Like, you look at it, everything's a 2 of, except for the legendaries. So, he went in there and he was like, I'm making a deck that draws kind of the same way every single game. So you kind of understand, what you're looking for, and you can reliably get to it, right? So everything's a 2 of, and then you get your legendaries, which are 1 ofs, and that's the way to build a deck in a consistent manner. But I feel like Handbuff has a lot of room to be a very tech-heavy type of deck, right? So a big game hunter is suddenly much better when it's not a 4/2, when it's a bigger minion for 5 that kills a huge thing. Suddenly Black Knight is really good. Suddenly, like I said, the Cold Master is really good. You can do techie things with this shell. And I think that somewhere along the line, we're going to find that this deck gets optimized in that fashion.
Yeah.
But this is a good start.
I've always liked that about Paladin in general. There's always, I feel, for whatever reason, maybe just because I play more Paladin than most other classes, but it seems like they always have the most room to get creative, to put your mark on a lot of the archetypes that have existed for this class. But anyway, yeah. So we've got links. We have links to the to Kibler's exact list at disguisetoast.com in the show notes, and we also have a link to Dill's deck list if you want to go and check that out. Now let's take a crazy game story.
Has the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
If you'd like to write into the Angry Chicken, you can send your crazy game stories and emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com. Zarnek writes in this week and says, I'm ranked 10 this month and haven't been able to make a climb against all these druids and Highlander priests, so I've been playing a mill rogue, and it is so much fun. I got matched up against an aggro druid, which is a rough matchup. I claw and struggle and use both vanishes trying to stay alive mid-game, but I know I will eventually lose. Lucky for me, the druid also knows I will eventually lose. Turn 8, he leaves me with 1 health and taunts me. Oh, no, he didn't. No, no, this is, you deserve to lose, sir. Turn 9, I play Valera the Hollow. Stealth for a turn, but I figure he will get nervous and just kill me the following turn. But no, he wants to keep playing with his helpless opponent. Don't play with your food, man. Don't do it. A few turns pass. I try to survive with Curator. He has a Black Knight. I can't catch a break, but he continues to taunt and pass turn. I play my Cold Light Oracles, but now all of my support cards are gone, and my win condition of Shadowblade into Mill to Fatigue is dead. He leaves me with 1 health and 1 armor, taunts and passes me turn, leaving me with 1 health as I fatigue for 1. If I don't win this turn, he will taunt and pass, and I will die on the next draw. He is at 27 health with a full board of buff tokens, and I have a rather unimpressive Oracle, Ferryman, and 2 Serenite chain gangs. However, what I do have is an Evolving Spores, stolen on turn 1 by my Swashbuckler. I cast Evolving Spores to give my board +1/+1. Valera lets me cast another Evolving Spores to give them Wind Fury. And my once meager board now swings for a total of 24. using my remaining 2 crystals for a game-winning eviscerate accompanied by Valera the Hollow's emote. How tragic. Lesson of the day for when you are playing in ranked, when you have lethal, take it. That's awesome.
Sweet revenge.
Yeah.
That's what you get, Druid.
Yeah, hey,
Like
folks.
so many turns of taunting. You'd think he'd be sick of it.
That's the thing. Like Hearthstone, there's almost always a chance, for the most part, especially when things like swashbucklers are involved.
Valera?
I feel like Zardek's opponent is with that guy in Heroes of the Storm when the opposing team is 4 levels ahead. Everything is destroyed on your map, and instead of killing your core, they just keep trying to run into your Hall of Storms.
Yeah, they go murking or something like that.
No, they just try to run into your Hall of Storms, and it just keeps bouncing them back, and they're stepping outside and dancing and spraying. That's what this guy was doing, but it's Hearthstone, so you got wrecked, son. Love it. I love it. Let's thank our patrons before we move on to emails and wrap this show up. We are supported via patreon.com/TAC. That is the place that you can go and give $1 or $2 or however many works for you per episode to the Angry Chicken Podcast. Thanks to our patrons to do all kinds of extra stuff. We did a triple-headed chicken stream last week where we tri-piloted Big Priest, and that was awful, so eventually we just switched to Highlander Priest, and it worked a lot better. We do patron hangouts in our Discord, which we also did last week, and our next goal is actually to have Raven come back to the show once a month as a recurring guest host, and we're currently just a little over $100 away from that goal. So if you enjoy Angry Chicken, if you liked Raven's episode last week, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TAC. And on this episode, thank you to Paul, thank you to Alex G, Adam W, Matt N, and Nathaniel M. We thank you very much for your support. Now let's bring it home with an email or 2 or 3.
Hello.
Hello, it's me.
Hello.
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com, same place as Crazy Game Stories. Dan writes in and says, "Hi all, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how some of the bosses ended up working out, particularly the Lich King. I thought the fight was excellent overall, but to me, the 9-class challenge served to highlight some of the innate issues with the format. Very often it's possible to know based on your mulligan whether you'll win or not. You either get that perfect opener or you don't. In the best case, this means that you'll often just concede and reload until you get that perfect opener. In the worst case, as seems to be pretty common with Lich King fights, it means you just build a Murloc deck and eventually win. What do you think? Is there anything they could do to make the challenge aspect more meaningful? Is it even worth it? I was thinking it might be fun if they reduced the cheese factor of some of the boss mechanics, but increased the controls on the deck construction side, that it could be fun." Yeah, I mean,
which is kind of... Yeah, that's kind of what Dill said, I think, earlier on in the show. We went way too far into the whole single-player Lich King Frozen Throne content, and I totally forgot this email was in here. But yeah, no, but Dill, as you mentioned, the whole deck construction thing, instead of having like one rule that happens at the beginning, give like a pool of cards or something and be like, hey, build from this and go.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of 2 ways to tackle the same issue of just making it a fun little challenge. And I don't know, I think this was okay. I don't think that it's necessarily bad. And we, like you mentioned, Jocelyn, I think you and Dan here kind of agree that it does feel bad when you're just like, oh, I just build Murlocs and that made me win. Okay. But I'm kind of on board with that being a thing just so that players without a lot of cards can possibly do it. And there's always going to be something like, in any game, this is the reason why the term cheese is so prevalent. There's always a way to kind of figure out how to kind of break the rules a little bit to do something in your favor that feels like you cheated. But you didn't really. You just found a little bit of a loophole, right? And that's okay. I don't mind that. If you really want the challenge, you can go out there and you can figure out a way to do it without that. But I don't want it to exist and then have this like carrot on a stick that is completely unattainable for 95% of the player base who doesn't have that many cards, right? There's still, there's us who we play Hearthstone and we get all the cards, but there's still most players out there who don't have much, and then this gets introduced and they want the Arthas, but they don't know how. I saw it was like #1 comment when Chalky's deck lists were posted, because he completed the. I think he might have been the first one to do it, but it was
He
like
might
2.5
have been
hours
at least
in.
the first of the streamers.
Yeah,
do
but
it,
that's
I
like his
think.
new
Yeah.
thing, right? Is like complete the stuff first. But you know, people were like, I can't build these decks. Like, I don't have any of these cards, and most of that was because they don't have any of the wild cards, right? So they're trying to figure out how to do it with standard cards, and that's hard. So Murlocs make it a lot easier.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure why the Lich King fight specifically felt this way, because I had a lot of fun with all the other bosses in this single player content. Maybe it's just because I did all the other bosses, once, and the Lich King I was trying to do so many times in order to unlock Arthas. Maybe that's why his fight seemed a little bit
It can get
less
tedious after
fun.
a while.
Yeah, a little bit tedious. Maybe that's why. But I felt that I really enjoyed playing the other, 6 bosses?
Yeah. Yeah, there's
7 with the original
Pro-
Lich King, I guess, who's
with the prologue.
you can't lose.
Oh, the prologue. Yeah, no, I was gonna say I'm not counting the, the prologue.
You shouldn't.
But yeah, the other 6 bosses, I found that like pretty easily I could kind of see what the hero power was, see what the rule was, and then construct a deck, and it was challenging and fun. But I only had to do it once with one specific class that would work the best to do the thing that I had to do. So maybe that's why the Lich King to me feels a little bit like not as good as the rest of them. But
he also had the thing where every time on turn 7 he played the same thing, right?
Yes, exactly.
So there's that too that makes it adds to the sameness feel of the whole thing, where you know exactly what's coming, you know exactly what cards he has, and sometimes it's not really based on especially with the Murloc things where I built just a Murloc deck. Basically, I was like, well, if he draws his Sludge Belchers and his Blizzards, I can't win. But if he doesn't, I'm going to run his ass over, right? And that's kind of, so, yeah, obviously there's going to be some cheese feel to that and just like, oh, I RNG'd into getting it done this time. But again, it's like, it's a card game. There's going to be that feel. It's just, and also, I don't think you can put content like this out and then make it impossible for you to do it unless you like have all the cards that can figure out that perfect little combination of, oh, I use this card from 5 sets ago plus this and breaks the thing and I win. Like I think that's asking a little too much, right? So
yeah,
I actually sorry.
I would rather I kind of like that this is the world we're in right now, where the feedback coming from the community on the Lich King is this conversation like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be able to kill him with Murlocs, because like Dills, I think I'm in your corner. If it was the opposite, if there wasn't instead of cheese, I prefer the word optimal. If there wasn't an optimal way to defeat the Lich King, and new players or budget players couldn't defeat him, I think the emails we'd be getting, the conversations being had would be, I can't beat this. Why, pay to win, boo. And now, granted, at the end of the day, it's one card pack and a hero portrait, which doesn't really affect your game. But still, I think if you really want that Arthas portrait, you should be able to get it. And I've always looked at this single player type stuff as is just for fun, and so it doesn't bother me. It can be a challenge if you want it to be. If you're rolling Murlocs because you want to get it done as fast as possible, that's on you.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I just wanted to say really quickly, Double XL Epic in the chat room put it into words way better than I was attempting to. But he was saying the problem with the fight is 1 to 6 is a little bit too easy, and then 7 and higher is too hard, which kind of speaks to the point Dills made about you always knew what he was going to do on turn 7. The other fights felt a little bit more smooth, and that's probably the issue, is that maybe if they'd made 1 to 6 a little harder and 7 and higher a little less punishing, that might have felt like I was making a little bit more decisions instead of just like, okay, got to make sure I do enough damage and then have something to deal with his turn 7 play like every single time with every single class, because that was the inevitable outcome of his turn 7.
Yeah, but I don't mind it because it felt like phase 2 of a boss fight, Like it felt like
and there
phase 1
is
and
the
phase
argument that he is kind of like a raid boss, but
Damn it, that's exactly what I was just about to say.
I do raiding and WoW. I don't necessarily want, I don't know. I like the smooth progression idea.
I don't want all
opposed to phases.
I don't want all of his turns to be exactly the same, but I think it's okay that one of his turns is the same.
Yeah, like in the overall grand scheme of things, like the little issues didn't take away from the fact that once I got it done, it was incredibly satisfying. Like, I think
was it okay? Because that was the question. Like,
too, is that like I remember for so long, the ladder felt so damn punishing and annoying. And I remember the first time I hit Legend being like, oh well, now this feels really good because of all those times I spent like being like frustrated and all that, right? Like, and then you get it done and you're like, yes, and that's exactly how it felt when I hit the 9th win. I was like, oh, I did it, and I think that's the feeling that they want you to have, right? So they accomplished that, I think, and it's not perfect, but I think for the first go around of something like this, pretty darn good. Can they do better next time? Sure, absolutely.
Now, all that being said, I know I'm kind of on the side of Dills here, but Jocelyn, I think it would have been phenomenal had you dropped your first Murloc and the Lich King just been like, a Murloc? You insult me with their presence, and he just destroys all of the Murloc cards in your deck. Just
all of a sudden he just has like a crab. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He just plays. Crab. Yeah, he plays like the frost crab, and it's just this undead frozen crab, and it just destroys all the Murlocs in your deck on the board in your hand. They're all dead. Sorry, you're not gonna.
I actually don't know. Was there any cards that weren't allowed in Lich King? Because I know in like the past in some of the boss fights, if you dropped Alexstrasza, they wouldn't let you. You could Alexstrasza him. You absolutely could. Like, you Alexstrasza him in the mage thing. A bunch of people use that strategy, so.
Yep.
But then, yeah, with all his armor, though, that didn't make as big of an impact as, like, I mean, Alex him in the warrior fight, and you're just like, well.
But there wasn't, like, specific cards that weren't allowed across all of them. Like, I know, like, so. you couldn't use 3 drops in Druid, 3 drops or less, whatever. You couldn't use spells in Rogue, but that's different. I'm just saying, like, that one card.
Were there any, like, banned cards? I don't think so. I haven't seen any. I do know when you play the Snow Flipper Penguin, he goes, I love him. And it's adorable.
I also do know that
all kinds of Easter eggs.
Frostborn doesn't die to Oozes and Harrison and stuff like that. So I guess technically, Mindbreaker doesn't work. Okay, that's interesting. But does he not work, or is he just like, can you just not play him? Because I remember like you'd play Alex, they'd be like, no, and then destroy him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get.
So,
you
okay. didn't get the effect or the minion. It was just a totally dead card. Yeah.
Yeah, they would just be 3/2s.
Okay, well that's cool. Well, I'm looking forward to getting there and doing it. I'm just actually enjoying.
You'll have a good time.
Enjoying my time on ladder at the moment, so I haven't gotten to it. But anyway, moving along. Dills, what does Jay have to say?
Jay says, "Good day, cranky cockerels. What if ... When you went on a win streak, you started playing against players of higher and higher ranks, increasing your win streak star reward based on the difficulty that you are tackling. This would help people get back to where they were the season before while still requiring skilled play to advance. It also shake up win streaks in a healthy way. Instead of high skill players just rolling over lower ranks, they'd be paired against the kind of competition they really should be playing." This is an interesting idea. I think a better way to do it wouldn't be to okay, let's say I'm at rank 15. And I get a win streak going, and now they suddenly start searching instead of for rank 15 players, they start searching for 13 or 12 or whatever. I don't think that would make too much of a difference. But what if you got to a win streak, and then you could only play against other players who are also on a win streak, and suddenly win streaks were worth 3 stars, and then it's like if you could keep beating down the other win streek players
and getting more and more stars,
bouncing way above everybody, that'd be kind of cool, and it'd be a way to. It'd give you like a kind of, it's like you're suddenly gambling against another win streak guy, and it's like you're having a showdown, like who's gonna keep winning even more stars. I could see something like that being very cool and helping you just shoot past everything, right?
I could see a lot more friend requests after I turn 1 Flappy Bird. That's what I could see.
Dude, I had a win streak. Screw you, man. I don't know, but I mean, again, it's that's kind of benefits everybody. It gives you a chance. Sure, one guy lost their win streak, but the other guy went up 3 stars. And if you get your win streak back, you'll still losing your win streak still meant you lost your win streak. So, but now there's we're throwing more stars into the ecosystem essentially.
But at the same time, you're taking them out too, because somebody's going to lose their win streak in that case, right? So you're kind of balancing
maybe already lose the win streak, right? That's not really necessarily just because some other guy's on a win streak doesn't necessarily mean he's a better player. But it kind of ends up giving you a chance to just like rocket through the ranks and stuff, which generally would mean that the better players would get to legend much faster and get out of everyone's way. So kind of a cool idea.
I dig. I'm into that. Rage.
It also kind of feels like
legend
arena,
faster.
right? Like as I'm playing better, I'm playing against other players who are playing better, and probably then you get the good decks go against the good decks, and it takes the win streak players like out of the pool for everybody else who's trying to play funky hunter with Deathstalker Rexar and stuff. Like
I wonder if
they remove themselves from the pool.
Wonder if you'd see any trends, like after you get that third win or after you get your third win in a row, if it's like, oh, okay, I better switch the deck I'm playing because the last 3 times
now it's a
happened,
win streak.
This is the deck that I went up against, and you start trying to snipe people, trying to keep
absolutely, that would
train
happen.
going.
Yeah.
Then
And
it's
that's
almost
fine.
like a little mini tournament, right? Because then you're like trying to target a deck that you think is going to have, 3 or 4 wins in a row.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what could that deck be? I'm going to try to target that.
Yeah, but then
I think that's really cool, actually.
yeah, but then it ended up being like actual ladder, and it would just be the deck you didn't expect it to be.
But that's okay because it's actual ladder for those guys, and everyone else gets to mess around and do fun stuff.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
It would though. It would lower the pool, and then you get more counter queuing, I guess you could say, like similar to what you get in Wild. So obviously there's some drawbacks because in Wild it's a smaller pool, so you play some guy, and then you re-insta queue, and you get the same guy. So people will then they're like, oh, I know he's playing pirate, so then they like immediately queue their double Galaka Crawler anti-pirate deck, and then try to stomp that guy.
Well, but if you only have the win streak people playing against the other win streak people, then that couldn't happen, right? Because then one guy loses the win
the other
streak,
guy,
and then so he'd be out of the pool,
He'd be
and
out
then
of the pool.
so you'd go
That's
up
a good
against
point.
somebody else in the win streak. So
wouldn't even happen.
you actually couldn't have that happen.
No, you'd just be counter queuing what you think win streak players are playing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
But not an actual player. Yeah, that's good.
Right.
That's fine.
I like that.
Let's do it.
Make it happen.
Go, please.
Make it go. Jocelyn, final email for today.
This one comes to us from Nathan, who says, hello, angry chickens. There's obviously a lot of chatter about how druids are running rampant on ladder right now, and I wanted to take a moment to point out a potentially unpopular opinion. Druid is fun as heck to play right now. Several different variations and playstyles to choose from. I'm currently enjoying the Malagos version. Have made being a druid for these first couple of weeks of nights a lot of fun. It feels bad to hear all the shouting about the need for nerfs, but I wholeheartedly agree that changes need to be made. My not exactly radical proposal, why not some card buffs? Instead of dropping the hammer on druids, why not offer a hand up to the other classes as a means of allowing them to catch up and compete with the druid's power level? That way, maybe those of us who like druid as currently constituted could keep playing our fun decks, and the other classes could catch up and sometimes pass us. So, in the past, Blizzard has said that they don't like to buff cards because then it has the chance of throwing a lot of things out of balance, much more than nerfing cards. So there's a lot more to consider when you buff cards. Why don't you just consider it, Blizzard?
Yeah, consider it. At least consider it. I think
Think about it.
Yeah, but there's a few things where some cards got over nerfed, right? So you think about Starving Buzzard. If you made that card cost 4, right? If it was 2, it was ridiculous, right? Make that card cost 4 instead of 5, and it's suddenly like potentially viable. I actually have a deck I made because I told you guys about this Prince Keliseth Quest Hunter idea I had a long time ago, right? When I saw that card, I was like, oh, this is perfect. You just play tons of 1-drops, and then Prince Keliseth is your only 2-drop. Once you actually get the quest done, you play Keliseth, and then you're drawing all these, instead of little 1-mana 3/2s, they're 1-mana 4/3s that draw cards. And I threw Buzzard into that deck, and I was like, he actually kind of works here, but he still sucks. But imagine if it was a 4-cost card, maybe this would be a viable deck. And sometimes I would high roll and win with the deck, but oftentimes I was like, I don't have the mana to do all the things I want to do here. That type of like little unbuff of something that they over nerfed, or unnerf of it, something they over nerfed, might be something to make some of the other classes much more viable again. I don't want to see them like go back and do like Call the Wild back to 8, just because I think that card is worth 9 mana, right? Like, and I think even though like it's not that good now, it's still like where it's supposed to be. But I think that there's cards that could potentially help combat druids, right? That were over nerfed. We could go back on those a little bit.
I mean, they shot Warsong Commander in the head and drug it out back.
Yeah. Warsong Commander could be made into something better. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I see that. I see that too. This just, we don't have PTR. We're never going to have a PTR. So I don't think they're going to do anything like this, because I think the potential ramifications of buffing elsewhere, it's a greater unknown than nerfing something where we already know how it works, because they have enough stats.
We already know how good it could be.
Exactly.
It can only go down, and they want it to go down, so it's probably fine. Whereas, like, if you know a power level and you take it up, then there's a chance for different interactions with different things that could potentially be worse than the original problem. But I don't know. I mean, you see in other games, people buff heroes and things all the time, right? Heroes and classes in WoW, and in MOBAs, they're always playing with power levels. So I mean, why not try buffing in Hearthstone? Give hunters and warlocks some buffs, and then if that doesn't work, okay, fine, buff somebody else or nerf something, or like, who says you can only touch a card once? Like,
yeah, and some of these old nerfs and stuff made a lot of sense in their heyday, right?
But now it's like, oh man,
yeah.
They're so underpowered.
Do you think that if Starving Buzzard was, cost 3, like, do you think there'd be a huge problem now? Like, Hunter's so in the dumpster right now. Yeah. I don't think it would. Do you think if Blood Imp went back to being a 1/1 that buffed the whole board, like, would that be that huge of a problem in this day and age? I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. Like, at the time they were huge problems.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays they are no longer problems, and I don't know if they would be in that iteration. What about if Novice Engineer was a 1/2 again? Would that be a huge problem in today's day and age? I don't know.
Novice Engineer, maybe.
But I mean, I don't really know, like, because if you think about it, it's like that buffs kind of everybody, and Druid has just this insane card draw mechanic. They wouldn't play Novice Engineer, and everyone else would be like, sweet, we got like a decent card mechanic, or card draw mechanic back for everybody else. And Druid still wouldn't care, because they're like, no, I draw 5 cards at a time. I don't draw
need to
card.
draw
What are you talking about?
But you know what happens, though? Then Novice Engineer is in every deck except for Druid, and then it just goes to the Hall of Fame next year.
Yeah, I mean, sure. But, like, I'm just saying, like, that is, I don't think that you should discount buffs completely. And I don't like when Blizzard just goes like, no, we don't do it that way, ever. Like, well, maybe that's an okay way to do it. Hunter's Mark goes back to 0. I don't think that would be a problem today. Flare goes back to 1. I don't think that would be a problem today. Like, it's a tool in the toolbox, and you shouldn't throw away a tool that could be useful one day because you didn't find it useful today, right? So, that's all.
We're also kind of making Team 5's argument of we don't like the buff, or we don't like to come in with nerfs too soon for them, because now we are picking out nerfs that kind of seem short-sighted at this point.
Sure, but they weren't short-sighted at the time. I'm just saying, like, that we're talking like stuff that happened years ago at this point, right? And you can revisit stuff that happened years ago, but
well, that's what I mean. Like, there's no reason that you can only nerf or buff a card once. Keep playing with it. Why not?
Well, they
keep saying play with the cards and see how it works. Then
Unleash the Hounds changed like 5 times.
That's
so
true.
But yeah, like, what I really don't want to see, though, however they choose to address the Druid thing, I don't want to see it happen in 3 months when everybody is just so frustrated with the game they're not even going to give the next expansion a chance.
Yeah.
I think that would be a big mistake this time around. And I understand, like, last week was too early. This week probably still too early. Next week, if the problem is still existing, I don't know if that's too early. I think you should really you just try something, right? And then if it doesn't work, try something else. Like, I don't know. Right now, it's just a lot of people. Everybody's telling me in my chat and on Twitter and all the places, on this show, that right now they're just not finding the game fun. And
so many of our emails, like, it was difficult to find, and I did include one email about Druid, but it was difficult to find things that weren't just like, OMG, this is how they need to fix Druid. Why haven't they done it yet? I'm not having fun. Like, I mean, we love hearing from you guys, obviously, but this is by far the thing that not only the Reddit community, but also our podcast community is talking about. There's a lot of people that just are not having fun right now. And it seems as much as there were calls for, nerfs to pirates and nerfs to quest rogue, for some reason it seems like people at this point aren't even calling for nerfs of druid. They're just like, this is just not fun. I don't even care if you bother to fix it because I just don't even want to play anymore. Which is like, before they were calling for changes, now they're just like, I'm out.
Yeah, like, I don't even care, I'm out.
Yeah, I don't even care. Which is really
I
unfortunate.
I see that type of drama whatever the topic is that everyone's mad about. There's always people making that.
Well, that's true, but I feel like this time it's the people who are generally very level-headed who are just kind of at the end of the rope. Because I agree with you. There's always the doomsayers. There's always the people saying, like, this is the worst thing ever and I hate it and I quit and whatever. This is the people whose names we recognize, who are usually really positive forces in our community, who are just like, hands in the air, like, just shrug, okay, I'm not having fun in this game anymore. And it's really unfortunate because I feel like this specific expansion isn't necessarily getting its due for, how cool it could potentially be, because it's just been so overrun with druid because of their two the Ultimate Infestation and Spreading Plague have just created this problem where nobody's really trying anything else because druid is just so good. Like, why would you bother? And so everyone's saying that this is a terrible expansion when it's not. There are some really freaking cool cards, and they're not getting their time in the spotlight because of Druid and because of the prevalence of these decks. So, I mean, I think something has to change so that we can actually see Knights of the Frozen Throne for what it is, and I think it's a great expansion. But yeah, it's just like Druids are kind of like killing the hype and killing the buzz, and we shouldn't be killing the hype and the buzz 2 weeks into the expansion.
This is the time when changes, I think, actually should be made more than 3 months, because you got to give the player base a little bit of a chance to adjust for sure. But if you're stifling creativity, then you're actually not even giving people a chance to play the expansion that you're so proud of and you put so much time into. And that is like the biggest tragedy of this whole thing, is that there's so many decks out there that aren't even getting tested and people aren't even messing with, and we're not seeing like the pros even give them a shot so that we can see their innovation. And I talked about this on the stream last night, and and again, like, I think it's our job definitely to like promote this game and try to make people feel positive about it, because it's like a big part of my livelihood, right? Is like this game and people watching my stream and being into Hearthstone and listening to this show and all that. And I want to do it, but I think you also have to be realistic too on the other side of that.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we are being realistic. While like what you said, Jocelyn's a great point. This is a good expansion that's being not given its time to shine, right?
Yeah, because of one class in particular, and it's kind of two cards that keep getting pointed out by everyone. So no, I'm in the same boat. What you kind of said at the beginning of this conversation, Dills, how last week too soon, this week probably still too soon, next week not too soon. That's how I feel. I've tried very hard not to make this another Druid episode, and not because we try and sugarcoat everything, or because we blindly try and stay positive. For the love of God, go back, like, I don't know, what was it, 6-8 months, when everyone was leaving us 1-star reviews saying we're a negative Nancy podcast.
Sure.
There is an ebb and flow to this show, just like there is everything else. But right now, I don't know, everywhere I go to read about Hearthstone, it's the same narrative. All anyone wants to talk about is Druid. So today I just wanted to have something different to say, is really what it boils down to. It's like there are already enough people out there having very long conversations about why Druid is stifling creativity and what you possibly could do to fix it. And we even had that conversation on this show last week. But I'm in the mindset of, if next week we don't hear something about a change coming, I think the unrest is warranted.
It's a problem at that point, yeah.
Yeah.
It's already a problem, but it's a problem you can kind of deal with because you think it's temporary, right? When it starts to feel more permanent, then it's going to feel bad, or even more bad for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But, look, I'm still going to play the hell out of this game. This is still my number one game. And I'm finding myself struggling to want to keep, like, on the ladder last night, I was playing the buff paladin, and after about 8 games, I was like, yeah, I'm done with ladder. Let's go play arena. And that's not a good, that feeling did not happen in Ungoro for a long time. And,
right.
And it's not just because of these two cards. It's because of these two cards in combinations with all the cards that have been, it's like giving good classes, just two cards that shore up problems. Maybe not the best idea. So hopefully they go back on that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for your emails, everyone. Keep them coming to tagpodcast@gmail.com, and that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks again to our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. Thank you to our producers, Declan H., Peter Williams, Michael N., Sean C., and Johnny S. You all are awesome. You can pick up an Angry Chicken t-shirt at shirts.amove.tv. Custom etched glassware can be found at etched.amove.tv if you want to get some wine glasses, pint glasses, coffee mugs, stuff like that. The show's Twitter is at TAC Podcast, and we record the show live. My dog is really excited. Tuesday nights at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/AmoveTV. Next week, we will be doing 3 p.m. Eastern, an hour early. Because, well, to be honest, I'm going to see my favorite band ever, and traffic is a nightmare. So we're recording an hour early because Green Day. So around the table, Dills, where can folks find you, man?
Check me out on Twitter at WillyDills and twitch.tv/WillyDills. You can also find my wrestling podcast with Justin Robert Young on 1-900 Wrestling on iTunes and all the other places where podcasts can be found.
Jocelyn, how about yourself?
Find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joss Plays. You can also check me out right here on twitch.tv/AmoveTV every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern for The Gamers In. It's my general gaming podcast. And this week we're going to be doing a What the Heck Happened at Gamescom. But it's, as of right now, just me because my co-host just had another baby. So I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's going to be talking about Gamescom.
Nice. Folks, I'm on Twitter at Garrett Art. All of the podcasts I do can be found at amove.tv. I'd recommend going and subscribing to Embrace the Spoilers because Joss and I just put up our episode spoiling the finale of the 7th season of Game of Thrones. So go and listen to that, and there's more episodes coming about different movies like Indiana Jones. Don't ask why, just go listen. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we will see you next week for the next episode of The Angry Chicken. But until then, job's done.
Job's done.
Job's done.
Yes!